Why did no one look up when she walked into the bar that night? Maybe it was the neon haze. Maybe it was the noise. Or maybe it was because people only notice what threatens them, and Chief Petty Officer Anna Sharma never looked like a threat. She preferred it that way. Silence carried farther than swagger, and invisibility was its own kind of armor. But that night something felt off. A current in the room she couldn't yet map, a pattern she hadn't decoded. Not yet. She sat quietly in the corner booth beneath the flickering Anchor and Eagle sign, the vinyl cold against her back. The smell of fried oil and spilled beer clung to the air. Off-duty Marines filled the place with the heavy energy of men who lived too loudly, the kind who tried to outshout the ghosts following them home. She didn't judge them. Noise was a coping mechanism too, just not hers. She pushed her tablet closer, zooming into a complex schematic, a polymorphic frequency-hopping algorithm, dense to most people, comforting to her. Patterns made sense, people less so. Her finger traced a line of metadata. She breathed slow, steady. The room faded, the noise softened. This was her sanctuary. Until a shadow fell across the screen. Well, what do we got here? A voice boomed. She didn't look up. The shadow didn't move. Whiskey breath rolled across her face. Little Navy nerd, lost in her picture book, Gunnery Sergeant Rohr said, loud enough to be heard by the entire bar. Sharma's jaw didn't tighten. Her posture didn't shift. She simply continued dissecting the signal path. This wasn't new. Strong men confusing stillness for weakness. It was practically a predictable algorithm. Miller and Cole flanked Rohr like mismatched satellites. They always traveled in a pack. Ego systems usually did. "Hey, I'm talking to you," Miller slurred, tapping her tablet with a thick finger. Sharma spoke without lifting her eyes. That wasn't a question. It was an observation, a flawed one. The sentence cut clean through their drunken bravado. Not loud, not aggressive, simply true. Cole chuckled nervously, but Rohr's face sharpened, thinned, darkened. His ego, a fragile, poorly engineered structure, hadn't been built to withstand direct inputs. "You think you're smart?" he asked, leaning in until his bulk blocked the overhead light. "You're just a pog pushing pencils. Real warriors bleed. What do you do, sweetheart? Write reports." She finally looked up. Calm eyes, dark, steady. The eyes of someone calculating, not rattled. "My duties are not your concern." For Rohr, that calm was gasoline. He couldn't translate quiet, couldn't process someone who didn't fear him, so he did what insecure men often do. He escalated. He grabbed her tablet, just snatched it from the table with a sloppy, triumphant grin, the screen smeared with the grease on his fingers. "Let's see this important work," he mocked, swiping across it like a caveman discovering electricity. Sharma rose slowly. She was a head shorter, a fraction of his weight. Her presence barely disturbed the air. Yet something shifted when she stood, a subtle recalibration in the room's tension, like a wire tightening. "Give it back," she said. "Or what?" Rohr laughed, raising the tablet higher. "You gonna cry to the shore patrol? No one's saving you now, little girl." Miller and Cole stepped in, blocking her exits. The crowd noticed. They always notice. They just never intervene. The bystander effect wasn't cowardice, it was inertia. People avoided friction. Sharma didn't, not ever. She wasn't afraid, not even irritated. She was disappointed. The human element always complicated otherwise flawless systems. "Last chance," she whispered. That tone, soft, almost compassionate, was the only warning Rohr would get. He sneered, "Make me." He didn't see her move, most never did. She didn't strike. She pivoted, a shift so subtle it barely registered. His arm descended in another mocking gesture. She stepped forward, not back. Her left hand slid up, fingers pressing a precise nerve cluster. Pain shot through him like electricity. His grip collapsed. The tablet fell, and her right hand caught it mid-drop like it had been choreographed. In the same smooth rotation, her hip clipped Cole, sending him stumbling into a table. Glasses crashed, the first sound anyone would remember. Miller lunged. His knee, the weak one she had already logged, telegraphed his imbalance. She guided his arm, hooked his leg, let gravity take over. He slammed to the floor, air punched out of him in one embarrassing grunt. Roar, fueled by anger instead of thought, charged. She placed the tablet gently on her table. That small detail confused the onlookers more than anything. Then redirected his momentum with a forearm twist so clean it felt like math. His knees hit the sticky floor. His face hovered inches from spilled beer. 8 seconds. That was all. No punches, no theatrics, just physics, anatomy, precision. The bar fell silent. Even the jukebox seemed stunned. Sharma released him. He collapsed, gasping through pain and disbelief. She straightened her shirt, picked up her tablet, walked to the bar, placed a 20 on the counter. "Please preserve your security footage from the last 5 minutes," she said softly. "Base security will request it." No threats, no anger, just procedure. Then she walked out into the neon glow, steady, unhurried, already recalibrated. She didn't need witnesses. She didn't need applause. Proof was already on the tape. Back in her barracks room, she filed her report with the precision of someone who believed in systems more than people. She described their actions, her response, no embellishments, no emotion. Then came the ritual. The wooden box, the black phoenix patch, a piece of a past she rarely acknowledged, not because she hid it, but because it didn't need to be worn to be true. The phoenix reminded her of what she was capable of, not physically, not violently, but intellectually, quietly, unseen. A warrior of the electromagnetic spectrum. She closed the box, logged the incident, exhaled. She didn't know, not yet, that the system she trusted was already shifting against her, that another storm was forming, that the people she had neutralized in 8 seconds would spend days crafting a lie. But as always, the noise would reveal its own pattern. She just had to wait. And she would. Why did the silence in Commander Evans' office feel heavier than the chaos of the bar? Maybe because silence carried judgment. Maybe because paperwork, not punches, was where most reputations died. Or maybe because Anna Sharma knew something she rarely admitted. Systems fail too. When Evans read the accusations aloud, she didn't flinch. Not externally. Not in the disciplined posture years of service had etched into her, but behind her calm eyes something shifted, a quiet ache, not fear, something colder, something older. Disappointment. Roar's report, polished with the arrogant confidence of men who believed lies would protect them. Miller and Cole, their statements carbon copies. A dozen witnesses, Marines who hadn't even been in the right angle of the bar, all reinforcing the same narrative. A lone sailor attacking 3 Force Recon Marines without provocation. Evans finished reading, rubbing his temples with the weary frustration of a man who hated politics, but lived inside a machine governed by it. "It's your word against theirs, Chief," he said, voice low. "They have numbers, rank, and witnesses." Sharma answered with the same quiet clarity that had undone Roar at the bar. "The truth is not determined by a vote, sir." Evans looked at her, long, searching before exhaling. "Until the footage appears, you're under investigation, restricted to base, pulled from Oracle Gambit." That part hit harder than she expected. Not because of pride. Because of purpose. The upcoming exercise had been her arena, the place where she could turn invisible signals into decisive wins. Being sidelined felt like being unplugged. Yet she stood, saluted, and walked out without argument. Arguments were noise. Proof was pattern. But as she walked through the base, she felt the change instantly. Eyes shifted. Conversations died mid-sentence. Whispers followed her like static. "A crazy Navy chick. Attacked Force Recon. snapped, unstable. Even those who didn't believe the rumors didn't challenge them. Belief wasn't required for gossip to spread, only convenience. She ate alone in the mess hall, not unusual, but now the silence carried a different weight: amusement, pity, fear. In the privacy of her quarters, she documented every stare, every whispered comment, every deliberate provocation. Not with anger, but with precision, data points, variables, a record she might one day need. But the hardest part wasn't the investigation. It was the isolation. She had always been comfortable alone, but forced solitude was different. It scraped something raw inside her, something she had buried years ago under layers of logic and discipline. That quiet, lingering question: why is the burden of proof always on the quiet ones? She didn't have an answer, so she returned to what she did know: order, algorithms, patterns. Her comfort wasn't in people but in the invisible world where behavior didn't lie. But people did, often. And the system she trusted seemed ready to believe them. Still, she didn't break, she recalibrated. A week into her restriction, the tension reached its peak. Oracle Gambit began, the largest joint force simulation the base had planned in months. A battlefield built of signals and deception, the kind she excelled in, the kind she had been preparing for. But her chair in the yield pit sat empty. Her replacement, a junior tech with shaky hands, struggled to make sense of the data storm. For 2 days, the exercise collapsed under its own blindness. The Red Cell, a notorious special operations team, was outmatching them at every turn. Missed intercepts, dead ends, ghost signatures, noise so perfectly engineered it swallowed every attempt to track it. A hurricane of chaos. And upstairs in the main operations center, while generals and commanders scrambled, she sat in a windowless support room, given a glorified network monitoring station, a punishment disguised as a job. She watched the failure unfold through data logs, her fingers itching to intervene, her mind tracing ghost patterns she wasn't authorized to touch. They think you're a threat, she reminded herself. To what? To whom? She already knew the answer, but she stayed silent. Restriction meant silence. In that confinement, something unexpected surfaced: an old memory. Her SEAL instructor's voice. The quiet ones endure the most, because no one sees the battle happening inside. She didn't consider herself a SEAL anymore. Too many years, too much distance from that world, but the ethos lived in her bones. Quiet resilience wasn't a skill, it was a survival mechanism. By the end of day 2, Oracle Gambit was a disaster. Red Cell operators taunted over comms. Commanders argued. The Air Force yield major was pale from embarrassment. General Wallace stood like a storm waiting to strike. When Evans finally approached him, speaking quietly about her abilities, she didn't know. She only knew her console pinged with an unexpected authorization message. Chief Petty Officer Sharma, report to Console Z47. You are cleared to assist. Her breath caught just for a moment. Not excitement. Validation. She logged in. Data poured across her screen in a chaotic waterfall of spectral noise. Most analysts saw randomness. She saw rhythm. She didn't dive into the main feeds. Too obvious. That's where everyone else had drowned. Instead, she examined the metadata, the faint, milliseconds-long echoes left behind when the Red Cell's network hopped frequencies. Residual signatures, micro-latencies. Not signals. Shadows. And shadows told the truth. Her fingers moved with purpose, not speed. She didn't chase the ghosts, she mapped them. A recursive algorithm built itself under her keystrokes, elegant and unhurried. Upstairs, a thin blue line appeared on the holographic map. Then another. Then a web, geometric, converging. A room full of experts watched in disbelief as clarity emerged from chaos. Downstairs, she didn't smile, didn't lift her head, didn't need recognition. She only murmured one thing under her breath, a habit from long ago. Patterns don't lie. She identified the command node, then its exfiltration route, then the deception emitter's power fluctuations, a precursor to movement. 15 minutes warning. Enough to flip the entire exercise. Upstairs, General Wallace demanded to know who solved it. Commander Evans pointed down. Chief Sharma, he said. The room, including Captain Hayes and Gunnery Sergeant Rohr, froze. Disbelief cracked into awe, then humiliation, then something quieter. Fear. Not of her strength. Of her mind. But downstairs, she didn't hear any of it. She only watched the map stabilize, the enemy laid bare by mathematics. For the first time in days, she felt something ease inside her chest. Not pride. Relief. Noise had become signal again. And in that clean clarity, she felt the first hint of what she'd been missing since the bar incident, the reassurance that truth, eventually, emerges. But she didn't yet know that clarity in the systems above had shifted something else too, something that would soon turn the entire base upside down, something that would drag the lies into the light, and force the men who tried to bury her to face what they feared most. A quiet woman who couldn't be intimidated, and who never needed to raise her voice to be heard. What made the room go so silent when the video finally played? Was it the truth itself, raw, undeniable, or the horrifying realization that every man who had sworn against her had just been stripped bare in front of the command? Maybe it was both. But the moment the footage flickered onto the briefing room screen, a stillness fell so complete it felt like gravity had doubled. Anna didn't react, not when Rohr told his fabricated story, not when Miller or Cole repeated it like a rehearsed chant, not when Captain Hayes sat behind them with smug confidence, certain the hierarchy would crush a single sailor's voice. She simply watched. No anger, no fear, just the quiet expectation of a mathematician waiting for an equation to balance. But the moment the screen lit up, showing the bar from the overhead corner, the entire atmosphere shifted. And suddenly, everyone understood why she hadn't wasted breath defending herself. The truth didn't need volume. It needed precision. The video had no audio, but it didn't require any. The images told a story so brutally clear it punched through every lie Rohr's group had built. The three Marines cornering her. Rohr yanking the tablet away. Their bodies blocking her exit. Her posture non-threatening. Her movements controlled, never aggressive. 8 seconds of clean, defensive skill. Then restraint. Composure. Silence. When the video ended, no one moved. Rohr's skin turned the color of wet ash. Miller stared at the table. Cole looked like he might vomit. Captain Hayes' jaw had gone so tight it trembled. The Marine prosecutor swallowed hard. The government withdraws its claim of unprovoked assault. Evans's attorney didn't gloat. He simply nodded, the gesture of someone whose client's truth had always been intact. But the demolition wasn't done yet. The defense will present additional evidence, her attorney said. And the room flinched. A series of text messages appeared next, each one a nail in the coffin. Check out the nerd in the corner. Gonna have some fun. Dude, she took us apart. What do we tell the captain? We tell him she freaked out and attacked us. He'll believe us. Who's he gonna believe? Us or some quiet little Navy nobody? A quiet little Navy nobody. Those words hung heavier than the accusation itself, a reflection of a culture that had mistaken her stillness for insignificance. General Wallace didn't shout. His anger was colder than volume could ever express. He turned slowly, deliberately toward Captain Hayes. You believed a story that defies physics, physiology, and basic common sense, he said. You chose ego over truth. Rank over integrity. Hayes tried to stand straighter, but shame bent him anyway. "You are relieved of command," the general said, "effective immediately." The silence cracked, not loudly, but sharply like a fracture spreading through stone. Then his gaze shifted to Roar and his men. Their faces were pale, stiff, terrified. "Your behavior disgraced your unit, your branch, and your uniform. Perjury, harassment, conspiracy to fabricate statements." Each word was a hammer. "You will be stripped of rank and processed for separation." The verdict hit like a physical blow. Roar's shoulders crumpled forward. Miller let out a sound halfway between a gasp and a plea. Cole covered his face. But Anna didn't look at them, didn't need to. Justice wasn't vengeance. It was alignment, the quiet recalibration of a system returning to equilibrium. When her name was finally spoken, the general's tone changed. "Chief Petty Officer Sharma," he said gently, "on behalf of this command, you are owed an apology." She stood, not proud, not triumphant, still, because stillness was her way of surviving. Stillness was strength. 2 days later, the apology became public. The entire base gathered on the parade ground. Roar, Miller, and Cole stood in front of thousands, uniforms stripped of rank, insignias removed, not by humiliation, by consequence. General Wallace spoke with a voice that carried across the formation like a blade. "Strength is not loudness, not stature, not swagger," he said. "Strength is competence, integrity, restraint." He paused, and this base turned its back on someone who embodied all three. He called her name. She stepped forward. Thousands of eyes tracked her, not with mockery now, but with something unfamiliar. Humility, wonder, a little fear. When the general handed her the command coin, he didn't offer theatrics, just words that weighed more than medals. "You upheld the standard we failed to protect. You acted with honor when others acted with ego. You deserve better from us." Then to the entire formation, "Let this be a lesson. Arrogance is a liability, and a quiet professional is never to be underestimated." Later that afternoon, another recognition came, quieter, deeper, one that mattered more. Master Chief Torres, the kind of man younger operators whispered about, walked into her workspace. He said nothing at first, just placed a crisp new Phoenix patch on her desk, the same emblem she kept locked in her private box. "Should have never been your fight alone," he said. She didn't smile, but something softened in her chest. Respect from her own tribe meant more than apologies from men who'd failed her. That night, she had only one place she wanted to be: underwater. 50 feet down in the dive tank, suspended in blue silence, the world above evaporated. No gossip, no eyes, no lies, only the mechanical hiss of her rebreather and the steady beat of her own pulse. Down here, the truth was simple. Water didn't care about rumors. Pressure didn't lie. Physics didn't betray. When she surfaced, Evans was waiting with a waterproof folder. "Chief," he said, "your performance during Oracle Gambit got attention." He handed her the folder. "Fleet Cyber wants you. High-priority tasking, something big." She took it. Water dripped from her hair, from her gear, from the folder's corners. She didn't ask what it was. She didn't need to. Purpose was enough. As she walked toward the intelligence center, she passed a work detail. Among them, now Private Roar. He froze, didn't look angry or resentful, only small. When she drew near, he dropped the trash picker, shakily lifting his hand in a salute. A broken gesture, but honest. And honesty mattered more than humiliation. Without breaking stride, she offered the slightest nod. Not forgiveness, not approval, just acknowledgement. Then she kept walking toward the next challenge, the next pattern, the next signal hidden in the noise. The past was settled, filed, archived. A closed loop. Ahead of her, a new mystery waited, one she would decipher with the same quiet precision that had carried her through everything else. Because dignity didn't demand attention. It simply acted. What made the South China Sea feel heavier than any battlefield she'd ever known? Maybe it was the silence, the kind that didn't just fall over a place but seeped into it, the kind that made even machines sound afraid. Or maybe it was the knowledge that somewhere beneath that vast, dark water, something was moving, watching, listening, a ghost fleet no one had been able to trace. Anna didn't rush toward the intelligence center. She never rushed. Rushing was noise, and noise blurred judgment. She walked with her dive bag slung over one shoulder, her hair still dripping from the tank, the waterproof folder tucked under one arm. Purpose gave her steps weight, focus made them quiet. But as she moved through the base, she could feel the shift, subtle but unmistakable. People stepped aside instead of blocking her path. Side conversations fell quiet, not out of mockery now, but something bordering on respect. And the ones who'd laughed at her a week ago suddenly avoided her eyes, unsure how to stand in the presence of someone whose entire narrative had turned out to be the truth. Yet she didn't bask in the change. Respect was as temporary as noise. She trusted neither. Inside the intelligence building, the lights buzzed softly, the air cold with recycled precision. Screens lined the walls, each filled with murmuring signatures, spectral analysis, and comms logs. Her world, her battlefield. Commander Evans waited at the entrance to the operations bay. "They're in the war room," he said quietly. "Been waiting for you." She nodded once, simple, controlled. But inside, something shifted, not pride, not anxiety, something heavier. The understanding that she was stepping into a problem only she could solve, and the fear that if she misread even one variable, the system and people she served might fail again. She pushed the thought away. Feelings later, patterns now. The war room was dim, centered around a massive holographic projection of the South China Sea. Dotted lines, scrambled signals, and shifting transmissions flickered like restless spirits. 3 admirals, 2 NSA analysts, and a team of cyber operators turned when she entered. No one spoke at first, not out of disrespect, but because her presence rewrote the hierarchy in real time. Admiral Ross, a woman with steel-gray hair and eyes sharp as sonar pings, cleared her throat. "Chief Petty Officer Sharma," she said, "you found a signal pattern in Oracle Gambit that no one else saw." Anna didn't respond. She didn't need to. Ross continued. "Now we need you to do it again." A flicker of static pulsed across the holographic sea. It wasn't random. She could already tell that, but she didn't step closer. Not yet. "Tell me what we know," she said calmly. An NSA operator, young, nervous, tapped a sequence on his console. "A network of unmanned submersible drones," he said. "We've nicknamed it Ghost Fleet. They communicate through frequency-hopping bursts, but the pattern is too complex. We can't find the command node. We can't isolate the source. Every time we get close, the network reshapes itself." "Like chasing smoke," another analyst muttered. Anna's eyes narrowed. "Not smoke. A mirror, reflecting everything except the truth." She set her dive gear down, rolled her shoulders once, and stepped toward the hologram. The light rippled across her face, painting it in shades of ocean blue and electric data. "Show me the raw feed," she said. The room hesitated. She said nothing, just waited. Then they complied. A waterfall of spectral noise cascaded across the central screen. To most, it was chaotic, threatening, a storm of information that didn't want to be understood. To her, it was almost beautiful, because hidden in every storm was a pattern. You just had to stand still long enough to see it. She leaned closer, her brow furrowing. She didn't touch the console. She didn't need to. Her mind began tracing the rhythm, the anomalies, the ghost pulses hiding between the obvious bursts. But then, something unexpected. A flicker, a stutter, a faint, almost imperceptible divergence in the waveform. Not random, not accidental, intentional, deliberate, like a heartbeat out of place. A message, and her pulse hitched just slightly, not in fear but in recognition. Someone wasn't just hiding a network. Someone was speaking through it. She stepped back, slow and thoughtful. The room watched her like she was decoding scripture. "What do you see?" Admiral Ross asked. Anna didn't answer immediately. She studied the flicker again. A pattern within a pattern. A signal inside the noise. And a signature she hadn't seen in years. Because this wasn't just advanced technology. It was familiar. Dangerously familiar. Evans noticed the shift in her expression. "Chief." Her voice, when she finally spoke, was softer than before, almost distant. "This isn't random, and it isn't new." Ross frowned. "Explain." Anna didn't look away from the screen. "This pattern, the polymorphic cadence, the secondary modulation wave, it's not just sophisticated." She swallowed lightly. "It's something I helped design." The room froze. Not metaphorically. Literally. No one moved. No one breathed. Ross leaned forward. "You're telling us this is American tech?" "No," Anna said quietly, "but it was born from it." A ghost tightened in her chest, not guilt, not fear, something else. Something shaped like memory. Someone had taken the blueprint of her old work, her prototype algorithm, and evolved it into something powerful, something dangerous, something capable of hiding an entire fleet beneath the ocean without leaving a trace. Someone who knew how she thought. Someone who once worked beside her. Someone who now wanted her to find them, or fail trying. Admiral Ross spoke softly, but the weight of her words was crushing. "Chief, who else knew this pattern?" Anna didn't look away from the spectral flicker. "There were only 3 of us. And where are the other 2 now?" Her answer came slowly. "One is dead." She paused. The flicker pulsed again, deliberate, rhythmic, like a heartbeat calling to hers. "And the other," she whispered, "went dark 8 years ago." Ross' eyes widened. "You think they're involved?" Anna exhaled. Not fear, not certainty. Recognition. "I don't think," she said. "I know." The room remained silent. Because for the first time, the ghost fleet wasn't just an enemy. It was personal. And whoever was behind it wanted her attention, wanted her mind, wanted her to follow the trail into deeper, darker water. As if the ghost in the machine had whispered, "Find me." And Anna Sharma, quiet, patient, always listening, felt the old instinct rising again, a buried part of herself waking after years asleep. The part that hunted patterns. The part that didn't run from the dark. Because sometimes the past doesn't stay buried. Sometimes it resurfaces. With a signal only one person can decode. What was worse, the enemy you could see, or the one who spoke to you through static? Anna didn't voice the question out loud. Questions like that were meant to be held, rotated, examined in silence. They lived better in the mind, where fear had no witnesses and truth had no place to hide. But the moment she left the war room, the weight of the revelation followed her like a shadow. A familiar pattern. A familiar mind. Someone who should have been gone. Someone who should have stayed gone. The hallway outside hummed with fluorescent lights, the kind of buzz that made quiet thoughts vibrate louder. Evans walked beside her, hands clasped behind his back, trying and failing to read her expression. "Chief, this person, the one who went dark." His voice carried caution. "Are we talking defection, rogue asset, something else?" Anna didn't answer immediately. She watched the rows of sealed servers behind reinforced glass, their blue indicator lights blinking like a heartbeat. 8 years is a long time to disappear, she finally said. That's not an answer. No, she agreed, it is. Because some answers were dangerous, some truths carried teeth, and some memories hurt more than wounds. She didn't slow her pace. Movement kept the ghosts from getting too close. You trained together, Evans pressed gently. Same unit. Same program, she corrected, not same path. He nodded, understanding. In their world, paths mattered. Paths defined who became a soldier, who became a ghost, and who became both. They reached the secured elevator. She swiped her badge. Evans didn't get in. You're going to work this alone, he said. It wasn't a question. I have to, she replied. He hesitated. If this person knows how you think. They'll anticipate me, she finished. And you're still going after them. She stepped into the elevator and looked at him, calm and steady. They're counting on it. The doors closed between them. The analysis bay was cold enough to numb fingers, but she didn't mind. Cold kept her sharp, kept emotion contained. She set the ghost fleet data on the console and exhaled slowly, letting her mind adjust like slipping underwater again, pressure equalizing in her chest. She began where she always did. By listening. Not to people. To noise. Noise could lie, but patterns never did. She isolated the faint modulation, the heartbeat she'd recognized, and played it on loop. Not audible sound, but visual. Waves across spectral analysis. A pulse, a rhythm, a fingerprint. A memory sharpened in the back of her mind. A dim room. A table cluttered with equipment. A young man with restless hands, tracing patterns in the air as he spoke. Signals are like people, Anna. Most are loud because they fear being ignored. The real ones, the dangerous ones, whisper. She closed her eyes. Elias, she whispered. Saying his name after 8 years felt like opening a door she'd welded shut. Dr. Elias Ward. Her counterpart. Her equal. Her mirror. Her friend until he was. A genius in signal obfuscation. Brilliant. Unstable. The kind of mind that could save a nation or break it depending on which direction the wind pushed him. He hadn't just vanished 8 years ago. He walked away. From the program. From her. From everything. But this signal, it wasn't just his technique. It was his signature. A message only she would see. A taunt wrapped in brilliance. She sat forward, studying the waveform again. 2 pulses, a pause, 3 pulses, a longer pause, then one long band. It wasn't random. It was code. Old code. The one they'd created together during experimental training. A private shorthand they'd used to test each other's reflexes. A language no one else would recognize. Her throat tightened. He was reaching out. Not to the world. To her. Why? Why now? Why this? She leaned closer, decoding the sequence, fingers moving slowly, reverently, like brushing dust off a long-buried artifact. When she finished, she sat back, breath caught somewhere between shock and disbelief. 1 phrase. 6 words. Sent through a secret language only the 2 of them knew. If you found this, you're late. A chill ran down her spine. Not fear. Recognition. Elias wasn't hiding. He was inviting. Hours blurred. She didn't check the time, didn't eat, didn't blink enough. She dove through the data like a diver descending past safe depths. She mapped each node, traced each echo, found every subtle handprint Elias had left behind. He was guiding her. But guiding her where? Near midnight, she hit the first solid lead, a transmission anomaly off the coast of a disputed island chain. A location too remote for casual traffic, too precise to be noise. A breadcrumb. Just like he used to leave during training games. But this wasn't a game. She flagged the coordinates and compiled a brief for Admiral Ross. But before she could send it, a soft chime echoed through the bay. Incoming encrypted signal. Her heart paused. A direct message. Not through the Ghost Fleet network. To her personal terminal. No one should have been able to access that. Not without intimate knowledge of her keys, her systems, her failsafes. But someone had. A single line appeared on the screen. No salutation, no signature, just a sentence that felt like it punched the air from her lungs. You shouldn't follow me, Anna. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She didn't type, not yet. Another message popped up instantly. But we both know you will. Her breath trembled. Not from fear. From understanding. He knew her patterns too. He always had. She typed slowly. Why now? The reply came within seconds. Because the seas are changing, and you're the only one who will understand what comes next. A third message. This one colder. If you come, come alone. And then, silence. Not absence. A door closing. Anna stared at the dark screen, pulse steady, mind racing but controlled. This wasn't a chase. It was a summons. And Elias Ward had never summoned anyone without purpose. She closed the terminal, her reflection staring back at her in the black glass, calm, composed, but with something new in her eyes. Resolve, loss, and a fear she'd never admit aloud. Not fear of him. Fear for him. Because Elias wasn't just brilliant. He was broken. And broken brilliance could drown the world. The knock on the analysis bay door startled no one, not even her. Evan stepped inside, face drawn tight. You sent a priority alert to command, he asked. No, she said. He frowned. We received one under your credentials. Her stomach dropped, not in panic, but in understanding. What did it say? She asked. Evan swallowed. It said, the hunt begins at dawn. Anna closed her eyes for one brief moment. That wasn't her message. It was Elias. He wasn't warning her. He was provoking her. Calling her out. Pulling her into deeper water. And she was already swimming. Because sometimes, the ghosts you chase don't want to be caught. Sometimes, they want to be found. What happens when the hunter realizes the trail isn't leading toward danger, but back to herself? Anna didn't ask the question out loud. Some truths only took shape in silence, the kind that stretched across the dim horizon as dawn crept over the base, painting the sea in washed-out silver. She stood alone on the pier, the cold wind tugging at her uniform, the encrypted coordinates Elias had sent glowing faintly on her tablet. He wanted her alone. He wanted her to follow. He wanted her to see something, something meant only for her. But dawn carried its own questions, ones that echoed in her chest louder than any signal. Why now? Why call her out after 8 silent years? Why leave a trail only she could decode? She locked the tablet, exhaled once, and boarded the small patrol craft the Admiral had reluctantly assigned her. Not backup, not surveillance, just a vessel, just a path. Because this wasn't a mission for a team. This was a dialogue between ghosts. The sea had its own pulse, slow, steady, indifferent. As the boat cut across the waves, Anna stood on the deck, eyes scanning the shifting horizon. Beneath her boots, the hull vibrated with engine rhythm. Above her, gulls circled distantly, indifferent witnesses to whatever the next hours would hold. She thought of Elias. Of the early days, 2 brilliant, restless minds thrown into the same crucible. He had always been louder, brighter, faster, a wildfire. She was the opposite, a quiet, methodical flame that burned low but steady. They'd balanced each other. Until they didn't. His brilliance had always danced dangerously close to a line, one she refused to cross, and when he vanished, she assumed he'd finally stepped into a darkness she couldn't follow. But now he had reached back through the static. "Why?" she whispered to the wind. The sea offered no answer, but the coordinates did. As the sun rose, the boat slowed, engines humming into a low idle. The location was barren, open water stretching endless in all directions. No island, no vessel, nothing. But her breath caught when she saw it. A faint shimmer beneath the surface. Light movement. A pattern. The ghost fleet. Dozens, no, hundreds of submersible drones hovered deep below, linked in a vast neural network. Silent, waiting, breathing like a mechanical leviathan beneath the waves. Her fingers tightened on the rail. Elias wasn't hiding his creation. He was displaying it, inviting her to witness its reach. The boat's sonar pinged once, a soft, curious chirp. Something massive stirred under the water in response. Not a drone. A signal. A transmission. Her tablet blinked. Incoming encrypted message. Her pulse slowed, not panic, but focus sharpening into something surgical. The screen filled with coordinates, new ones. Farther out. Deeper. Riskier. And a single line of text. "Come see what you built." Her throat tightened. What you built. Not we. Not I. You. A subtle blade slid between old bones. She didn't hesitate. Didn't look back. "Take me there," she told the pilot. Hours later, the sea changed. Darkened. Deepened. A storm gathered slowly on the horizon, not violent yet, but heavy with intent. The waves grew taller, the air colder. As the craft cut through the rising swell, something surfaced in the distance, a silhouette, metallic, huge, rising like a ghost from the underworld. A research platform. No. A repurposed offshore facility, abandoned on maps, alive in reality, and entirely concealed from satellite detection. Until Elias wanted her to see it. The boat pulled alongside the structure. There was no welcoming party, no guards, only a single mechanical lift waiting as if it had been expecting her. She stepped onto it. The platform's rusted metal groaned faintly beneath her weight as she rose toward the main deck. Wind hit her face. Salt stung her eyes. But nothing stung as sharply as what she saw at the top. A figure, standing at the edge of the platform, hands behind his back, shoulders relaxed, hair longer than she remembered. Older, sharper, different and painfully the same. Dr. Elias Ward. Alive. Real. Watching her with an expression she recognized all too well. A mixture of admiration and sorrow. The lift stopped. Neither moved. The sea roared around them, the kind of sound that swallowed words whole. He spoke first. On it. Just her name, soft, familiar, dangerous. Her jaw clenched. "Why call me here?" "Because you're the only one who would understand what this is," he said, gesturing to the massive structure beneath their feet. "What it means." "What did you build?" Her voice stayed steady. He stepped closer, slow, deliberate, measured. "A future," he said, "one the world isn't ready for. And you expect me to approve of this?" He smiled, small, sad, knowing. "No, I expect you to see me." Her breath hitched, not in surprise, but in anger she had buried for years. "I did see you," she said quietly, "before you disappeared." Elias looked away, only for a moment, and the ocean wind filled the silence between them like a third presence. "I left," he said, "because the system you still trust would never allow what needed to be done." "And now?" she asked. "And now?" He exhaled. "That same system is shifting, cracking, failing. He pointed toward the sea, where the ghost fleet pulsed with faint bioluminescent light. This is stability, order, a world without blind spots. Anna stepped forward, the steel beneath her boots vibrating from the waves smashing below. Or control, she countered, absolute control. Elias didn't deny it. Someone must hold the reins, Anna. And you think that someone should be you? No, he said softly, I think it should be us. The wind died. The world narrowed. Her pulse didn't quicken, it steadied. Because the truth was finally surfacing, clearer than any signal. He didn't want her to stop him. He wanted her to join him. He always had. And for the first time in years, Anna felt something unfamiliar swell inside her chest. A fracture. A conflict. A part of her buried deep, whispering that Elias wasn't entirely wrong, that the world did run on blind spots, that noise outpaced truth, that systems failed the quiet ones. But another part, the part that survived every betrayal, tightened her resolve. You built something dangerous, she said. I built something necessary. You called me here as a partner. I called you here as a friend. She swallowed hard. You called me here as a test. He stiffened. And in that split second she saw it. The fear behind his brilliance. The loneliness behind his genius. The fragile boy he once was, hidden beneath layers of arrogance and conviction. But she also saw something else. A line he'd already crossed. And one she would not. Her voice softened, painfully so. Elias, I'm not here to join you. A crack, tiny, brittle, appeared in his expression. I know, he whispered. Lightning flashed in the distance. He turned away, looking out at the endless sea. Then I guess, he said quietly, we both knew this could only end one way. A cold wind swept across the platform. He didn't threaten her. Didn't move against her. Didn't raise a hand. He simply walked toward the far edge, where a dive platform lowered into the dark water. Follow if you must, he said, stepping onto it, but you won't like what you find. He disappeared beneath the waves, swallowed by the storm. Anna stood alone on the platform, the wind tearing through her hair, the metal beneath her feet trembling with the force of the sea. Her heart didn't race. It weighed. Heavy, steady, unbroken, because she knew what came next. She would follow, not because he asked, not because he provoked, but because he was wrong, and someone had to stop him. She tightened her grip on the railing, prepared herself, and whispered into the storm. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. A breath, a pause, it simply acts.